Welcome to the audio companion of It's Only Me. I'm John Underwood, and what follows is a brief excursion into the life of Ted Williams. I knew Ted for many years, and because of the writing I did on his life and on our adventures together, had occasion to record much of what he had to say about baseball, about hunting and fishing, about sportswriters and politicians and the ups and downs of stardom, about the wars he was in, both overseas and at home, about growing up in San Diego with a singular desire to be the greatest hitter who ever lived, and about the turmoil and the tears en route to that destination, and yes, about his innermost feelings on life itself. What follows are a few of the highlights from those conversations taken from our times together on 4 continents. Ted's comments, as always with him, are candid to the extreme, and some may find the language offensive. But that's Ted, so try not to be taken aback. The fidelity of the recordings might not always have been state-of-the-art, but the content, as you'll find, was never dull. The Ted Williams I knew was exactly that, honest, to the point, and wonderfully spontaneous, even when it might hurt him. He was, in every way, one of a kind. I hope you enjoy the following few excerpts from those conversations. Ted begins here with his own discussion and remembrances of his childhood days in San Diego.
Tell me about the neighborhood and what it looked like. And
well, the neighborhood, the city water tank was right close by, right next to the playground, and I was 4 blocks from my junior high school. I'm from my grammar school, and just about this time again, 11 or 12, I was in the 5th and 6th grades. And it was just during this time that I started to just go all out for playing, baseball was the game I wanted to play. And the only other game I really played a lot of was handball and horseshoes. I never liked basketball, because the basketball always felt like it was 4 times bigger than it was. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't particularly big at that time. I was kind of tall and thin, but I didn't have very much strength. I couldn't run very good. And so baseball was the game I was playing all the time.
Where did you live, in a house or an apartment?
Oh yeah, we had a house, little house in San Diego that my mother got this house through the kindness of the Spreckles out there. Spreckles, you've heard the Spreckles?
Yeah, but
they're a big important family out there.
Yeah.
And my mother wanted this house, and I think they bought the house from my mother, and my mother was going to pay him back. I'm not so sure that she ever paid him back. I think eventually they gave the house to my mother. I'm not sure. I don't know that part of it. But I do know because of the kindnesses of the Spreckles, at that time we got that house. And at the time that she bought it, it was a $4,000 house. And in North Park area. And I remember, before we moved out there, the thing I remember furthest back in my recollection was when the Shenandoah flew over San Diego. And I was about 4 or 5 years old. They flew over San Diego. And then I remember seeing Lindbergh at the stadium. And I remember, and I've always been a great admirer of Lindbergh, especially the way with the hero that he was. Certainly the great tragedy that he's had, but his great obsession to wanting to be alone. He wanted his own life. He didn't want to be glamorized, or he didn't want to be, affected by all the limelight.
And yet he had a desire to do the things that were bound to get him.
And he's still doing great things. He's still doing great things. And man, I admire. And I put him in the 5 men that I admire the most that I've ever known, in my lifetime.
What Ted Williams saw at that stage of his life in himself was a shy, introverted kid who grew up biting his nails and recoiling from social situations, a kid whose only real mode of expression was baseball.
So about this time I make the team the first year, and I'm starting high school, and about 15 years of age, 15, I started to play sandlot baseball. I'm still playing American Legion baseball. Now don't forget, I'm practicing all the time. Playing American Legion baseball. I'm playing sandlot baseball. So I had opportunity, didn't I? In the sunny Southern California, and a playground a block away. Now our sandlot teams and our American Legion teams would challenge the Lexington and the Saratoga baseball teams, because if anybody had equipment, it was the Navy. So we'd warm up with their balls and throw one in an ash can, and nobody knew where it was. We'd come back and get it. or a broken bat that wasn't too bad, they'd leave it, we'd take it. And they had pretty good, the Saratoga and Lexington had pretty good baseball teams. What the hell, they had a complement of board of 1,000 men, 600, 700, 800 men, all of them athletic. You know, they were just doing nothing. They were in the service, but you know, no wars for 10, 15 years, and you know, everything great. Not making too much, but a lot of fun.
Where was this in relationship to the harbor? I guess you were fairly close.
San Diego at the time
Everything
was
is close
less
to
than 100,000 people.
Yeah.
And now it's 650,000 people. And at that time, San Diego was a pretty nice little town. Now, here's where Mr. Cassie comes in the act. His boy and I played on the same team, and his boy is the principal of Hoover High today.
Is that right?
Yeah.
What's his name?
Les Cassie. Or, Les Cassie.
His father's name was Les, too?
I think his father's name was Les, but I'm not sure. I forget. I used to call him Mr. Cassie. And he liked to fish. He was on the school, not board, but school maintenance. He was a kind of a supervisor or something in fixing schools and desks and lights and, you know, that type of stuff. Maintenance, school board, school system. And Les and I were in school together. Les would play. And of course, I was a little better ball player than Les. And Les always kind of, in a small way, kind of thought, you know, gee, Ted's a good ball player. And we got along great. I used to go to his house a lot. But Mr. Cassie used to like to fish. And I liked to fish, but I never had a chance to go. And he'd make an old Calcutta rod, but all I need is a reel, boy, and away we'd go. And he'd fish every Saturday night. Well, every Saturday night. Or Friday night. Friday night's when we'd go. Friday night's when we'd go. Because then we could fish till Saturday morning, and then have all day Saturday, and Sunday, why, we'd play ball. Sometimes I'd play on Saturday, but I remember more. And I used to hunt a lot, too. I'd save as much as I could to get 10 shotgun shells, and walk 4 miles down Imperial Valley, which is all pretty motels and golf courses now, and hunt rabbits down there. And
what'd you do for a gun?
Well, a friend of mine had a 410 shotgun, and we'd go together, see?
Yeah.
And,
were you close, or you close to him and you're close to, you had a lot of close friends in those days.
Not too many close friends. I can name 4 or 5, maybe.
Yeah.
3 or 4. Dick Montgomery, who was, later, he was an amateur boxer and tough little guy. Died, had a heart attack, 50 years old, died, 45, 48 years old, died. Hell of a nice guy. I used to hunt with him all the time. Joe Villarino, a little boy that I went to school with, also played in the Hoover team. It was an awfully nice little guy, and I don't know what he's doing exactly, but he's doing pretty good. And it was a baseball-playing family, just like the Talamanis were a baseball-playing family, you know? The playground director, Rod Luscombe at North Park, was a great influence on me because he liked to play. He was what you might say a frustrated athlete because he always hoped, I'm sure, that he could have been a big player. He went to the University of Arizona with Hank Lieber. Hank Lieber became a not-saying player, and then he got hit in the head and fouled him up. But Rod Luscombe was a big, powerful guy, big 6'3", hell of a nice guy. And he was a playground director. And he used to like to hit. You'd think he was going into pro ball himself. He's about 24-5 now, see? And we'd have little games. I'd throw him breaking stuff. He'd throw me breaking stuff. And we'd play that way. And, but then Mr. Cassidy and I, we'd go fishing Friday nights. And I probably went fishing with Mr. Cassie 50 times at night. And he had an ulcer. I remember that. And all he could eat was graham crackers, chocolates, and milk. Well, that was all right for me. I wasn't eating too good anyway, and he didn't want to eat anyway. I remember I'd eat all his damn dinner for him. And we'd fish for croakers and corvinas all night. You take a kid 14 years old, he's getting up pretty early. He's got a lot of activity going, you know. The eager beaver and all that stuff. I'd be so damn tired at 3:30 and 4 in the morning. We'd come home. I'd go to sleep every time. Must have been lousy company for him. But he was the nicest, dearest man. In fact, when I went to spring training, the first year, he made the trip from California to Florida with me.
He drove you?
Well, no, I had my car, but he helped drive, and he went with me. And he was the nicest man. Oh, I just loved him. I used to always think how lucky Les was to have a father like him, because he was such a nice man. Not that I didn't love my father, because I did, but he was an altogether different type of guy. My dad, he was just satisfied to let things go as they were,
Did he travel with your dad? Was he a traveling man?
No. He had this little photography shop. Yeah. And these sailors would come up from the docks and stuff, they'd come right up Fifth Avenue, and he had a little photography shop upstairs, see? And they'd get passport pictures, or people to get passport pictures, and maybe the gob and his gal friend, and sailor that wanted to show his mother a picture from the West Coast, and that type of stuff. That's the kind of, he had a little shop, not much. It was upstairs, a pretty big room as a matter of fact, but he didn't do that much business.
He wasn't athletic, your dad?
No, the only thing my dad liked to do was to ride horses, because of his early cavalry. He was in the 14th Cavalry, now where the hell that was. And he liked to shoot, and he later became U.S. Marshal in San Diego. The best job he ever had. It was kind of a political thing, because he was for Governor Merriam, who got elected. Somebody pulled strings and...
Is that after you were in big league ball?
No, before. This was in 34, 5, 6. And so...
Why do they refer to him as a wanderer?
Oh, that's a lot of bullshit. That was stuff that wasn't right either. That was stuff that... What the hell? He lived with my mother 20 years and finally he had to pack up. I'd have packed up too, because my mother was strictly Salvation Army, strictly non-family, a wonderful woman in so many ways, but I wouldn't want to be married to a gal like that. She, again, the house was dirty, and Jesus, I hated it. So anyway, this takes you up to about 34, right now, 34. Mr. Cassidy. The fellow next door to me took me fishing, lake fishing, and I got my first bass in those years. An awful nice guy, Chick Roder. And the fellow across the street was one of the greatest guys I ever met, with Johnny Lutz. And he's been in a wheelchair for 15 years now, and a wonderful, greatest shot I ever saw. Great trap shot, great skeet shot, great game shot, great pistol shot, great rifle shot.
This was a man when you were a boy.
Yeah, he was. I think John's probably 10 years older than I am, maybe 12, in the wheelchair.
Oh, well, then you had access then to equipment.
Yeah,
it
sure.
It didn't have to be your own.
Yeah, but I've always been grateful for those guys, because they at least started me in a small way in something I knew I wanted to do, but I would have never if I'd say lived in a big town. See, I lived in a little town, San Diego, where I knew the people.
Ted Williams served in 2 wars, World War II, where he was a non-combatant, and then he was brought back in as a reservist in the Marine Corps, flying jets in Korea, in combat. Ted missed the 1952 and 53 baseball seasons because of his participation in the Korean War. In Korea, he flew jets in combat, and on one particular occasion, almost lost his life. He tells it graphically and in detail.
Well, and so I started to fly missions, and God, I don't think I'd flown 8 or 10 missions, and God, I was getting sick, I was sick before I got over there. But I starting to get sick, and geez, I'm going to the infirmary. My ears are plugged up, my nose is plugged up, and really getting in miserable weather. It was foggy and misty and lousy. So I had to go to the infirmary about every other day. Finally, by God, I got sick. Well, I guess we went out on that one run. I was out on that one mission, and I got hit with small arms. It hit me just right, apparently.
Where were you, do you know?
Well, we was a long ways over the 38th parallels, probably as far over the 38th parallel as I was on any flight. And went on over there, and I got hit, and all the red lights went on in the plane, and things started shaking, and I knew I had a damn hydraulic leak. And geez, the low fuel warning light went on, the fire warning light went on, Anything, they have so damn many lights in the damn jet that, if anything goes wrong, a light hits you right away. And I'd just come down off this run.
Dropped your bomb?
Oh, yeah. We were using daisy cutters that day. They got a fuse on them about that far in front of the bomb. So when it hits, it blows, you know, it spreads out that way. It didn't go in the ground and poof.
What was the target, do you remember?
Personnel. Mostly personnel.
Yeah.
There's a big concentration of troops up there someplace. So I started to call right away because I knew I was hit. And I could see a plane ahead of me, and I could see one off here at the right. And I'm calling, you know. I forget what our call name was that day or whatever the hell it was. And I couldn't pick up anybody. So all of a sudden, this plane right behind me. And he's right there, and it was little Lieutenant Hawkins, little sandy-haired guy, young kid. And he could see that I was calling him, you know, nodding to my head, you know, and talking to him. And the last thing I heard, he said something like, "I can barely read you." He said, "I can barely read you. You know, you barely read your transmission," and it pooped out.
So now no radio.
No radio. So finally he got up close to me, and he went like this behind me, you know, like that. It was leaking fuel or something. It was my hydraulic fluid that was running down the fuselage and, you know, dripping off because it had been fueled.
How far were you from home? Do you have any idea?
Oh, we were 125 miles over the bomb line. And I was looking in my cockpit too much, and he was going, "Let's get up." So we started to climb. And
for what reason? Why would
to get high? High was the best safety factor you had, altitude. In other words, supposing I had 2 minutes to run. 2 minutes of running at 600 miles an hour would be what, 50 miles, 30 miles or something, 10 miles, 15 miles. But hell, if I could get 2 minutes of climbing, I might be up at 10,000 feet, and shit, I could glide for 25 miles, you know?
I see, yeah.
So you got to get up. So he went like this, and so we started to climb. In the meantime, I'd taken off my leg strap, which kept all your data for the trip. Took it off, and I was sure I was going to have to bail out. And I had taken off my hydraulic system because my hydraulic system was apparently hit because when I went off the bomb target, geez, my old stick started to shake like that. It had a leak in it, you know, it was pumping out. So you always, anytime you have anything wrong with your hydraulics, you turn it off because you could be in a turn, you know, think it's a nice, easy turn, then all of a sudden it would catch hold. If you didn't turn it off, you know, you might be struggling with it. If it didn't, and all of a sudden take hold, geez, you'd spin 3 or 4 times like that, you know, because when you fly a jet, you just barely move the stick. It's just soft and easy.
So you shut off the hydraulics?
So I shut off the hydraulics. So now I'm steering it mechanical. Really putting the old stuff to it.
Any smoke in the canopy?
No. So I'm up about 18,000 feet now. And I'd taken off my oxygen mask, which was a mistake. Because, and the water, frozen water was down here, and where we wanted to go was here. And I felt like any minute I'm going to have to bail out of this son of a bitch. I hated the thought of ever bailing out because the thing was small anyway for a guy like me.
Yeah.
You're sitting on a foot cushion, thick, 8-10 inch thick cushion, you know. It's in a big helmet. I used to take off like this down the runway. I'd be cramped up like that. Well, by the time I got seated in and pressed a little bit and pulling up and forcing down, I'd squash that a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
And hell, every time you come in on a jet run, you had 8, 9, 10 G's on the thing, you know? But you come in, you know, and pulling on out, you know? You're not supposed to. You're not. Yeah, you're not supposed to have more than 14 G's. I'm putting another 150 pounds of weight on that seat.
Yeah.
So
So you didn't want to bail out?
Oh, I was squeezing there so damn much. And when you bail out, you know, you have to be sure you're right up in the tight because you go, and the canopy's right like that. You know, your mirror. I mean, your mirror, your window is right like that. You know, your viewing window. See? Hell, right there is where it is. And hell, I felt, boy, I'd leave my knees right in the cockpit. Christ, I'll never get out of here. And boy, I was hell-bent on bailing out. And that's the biggest fear I had in the damn airplane, is if I ever had to bail out, I'd never get out, you know? Now, I suppose the bigger guys than me got out. By God, I tell you, I think it'd have been an awful tough job. So, Hawkins did a great job. He led me back to field, and in the meantime, he's calling in, telling that, you know, he has a plane with him that's smoking.
So you've gone 125 miles now?
Yeah.
From the target to back to base?
12 minutes, say 15 minutes. So we're over the field now, and I'm starting to drop down. Well, I have no dive brakes. I have no dive brakes, and I've already made up my mind that probably I'm going to have to blow my brakes down, you know? No electrical system, no hydraulic system. I forget where the brakes went.
What does that mean, blow the brakes down?
The wheels. Well, they had a cartridge.
Yeah.
Once you pull this cartridge, boom, blew them down, you know, so make sure they get down. Well, I'd been burning for this 15 minutes. But I was up so high there wasn't enough oxygen to get it burning good, see. So I'm up high, and I started to go down, and he called the field. And don't forget, we were landing at a field that wasn't our field, because we had made this run. There was 32 planes in the raid, and the mission took longer, so everybody was low on fuel. So our 32 planes, plus the 30 or 40 F-80s or F-86s that were on the same raid, giving us high cover, you know, for MiGs and stuff, we were in there bombing. And they were landing at the same field we were landing. If you don't think I was a rat race, I didn't see any, but the 80 planes coming in there like that, or 60 planes coming in like that, it's a lot of jets to be crowding in to get in the field.
You were in an F-9.
I was in an F-9. Well, he called in, told the tower that the plane was coming in, that was in trouble. Geez, all I had eyes was for the field. I didn't give a shit about looking for anything or worrying about anything. All I had in mind was that airfield. And I had made up my mind I was going to blow my brakes down. Well, in those, we used to make a run that, I mean, when we come in, you know, the field was this way. We'd always come on in, and then we'd always circle and get over the field right here at 2,000 feet. Then at 2,000 feet, we'd make a break. You know, we were 4 or 5 planes, see? We'd make this break, and then we'd drop our wheels down, flaps, come on in and land. Well, I did that. I got right here, and I started to make my break. Boom! Big explosion in the plane. One of the wheel doors blew off, and all this fire and smoke was underneath me, see? And when it got down low enough, I was catching on fire, see, and it just blew up. Now, why a wing didn't go or anything else, or, you know, just an act of Christ.
Could you have ejected at that point?
Oh, I doubt it. No, I doubt it. If everything had gone perfect, I might have, but I don't think I would have been that agile in the plane because, you know, you're right here and boom, starting down, you know. I don't think you'd have done it. I just don't think you'd have done it. Possible, but I doubt it.
Did you think that was it?
No, not them. No, the plane's still together. I'm still flying. I think, well, but I knew something bad's happening now because, so geez, I made a fairly tight turn, and all I'm doing is trying to get on that deck. I have no dive brakes, but I must be going about 225 miles an hour. Instead of coming in 110, I'm 225, about twice as fast as I ordinarily would have been. But don't forget, I didn't have my brakes, I didn't have dive brakes, didn't have my wheels down, and I had nothing to slow me down. All I'm thinking about is getting on the deck. So I made a good approach, come on in, and I never will forget, as I was coming in here to come in, there was a goop village down in here, you know, and God, I'm coming in, I'm on fire. There's 30 feet of fire going up behind my ass, see? And I saw those little guys just running to beat hell. And I come in, as soon as I got over the field where I knew I was going to make it, I pull the wheels, you know? And one of them kind of dropped down, see? Just kind of dropped down. And I hit the runway, and I skidded 1 mile up the runway. So I was really coming in fast.
Flames all over the place now. Huh?
There was a fire truck. You know, I got in, and I'm pressing the brakes, a natural instinct, you know. I'm pressing the brake, and I'm saying to myself, when is this dirty son of a bitch going to stop? That's all I said. When is this dirty son of a bitch? And if I ever prayed in my life, the only goddamn thing I said, well, for the goddamn Christ, it's the time old Teddy Ballgame needs you. I mean, I pretty much said it like that, too. And
at that point, you probably thought that was it, huh?
Oh, yeah. When I was coming back, when I got off that target, and I was all the lights are in front of me, I thought, so...
What does go through your mind at a time like that?
Well,
you're facing death.
That's just exactly what I said. I was mad. I get mad when I get scared. I get mad. And I said it 2 or 3 times. I said, goddamn Christ, this is the time to help me. Just like that. So, I got to say that I think there is. I have to lean that way.
You what?
I have to feel that Christ is responsible. Somebody's responsible for this. Somebody's got to be in charge.
Exactly.
Ted Williams' first year in organized baseball was played with the San Diego Padres in the old Pacific Coast League. After that, Eddie Collins of the Red Sox came to town and signed him to a contract, and in 1938, he went to spring training with high expectations. He had one thing going for him and one thing going against him as he went south that spring. Number one, he had all that talent. And number two, despite an admitted inferiority complex, he was very cocky.
I went to spring training. I got down there and I was there about, 10 days. And we were going over to Bradenton, and we were playing 2 games that day. One to Bradenton and one some other place. Our part was staying here, and the others were going to Bradenton. And I made a point. I just went to Joe Cronin, and I said, I remember riding home the first time, and telling him how impressed I was with Grove. God, he's the smoothest thing I've ever seen. God, he was just a picture. He'd hump up, and he wasn't real fast then. He was getting 38, 37, and he looked pretty strong. The prettiest left-hander I ever saw pitch. And I remember talking about how Jimmy Fox hit the ball. Geez, I was impressed with Fox. He was strong. You could put a gun and fire it, and it'd sound like Fox hitting the ball. Boy, did they crack. Certainly cracked a hell of a lot different than mine did. And,
kind of liked his muscles, too, didn't you?
Yeah, sure. And, of course, all the guys I thought were wonderful. They treated me great anyway. And I wrote home telling them about all the guys, and of course Joe Cronin. And of course Cronin wasn't as big a player as Fox and Grove, and but Joe was the manager, and he was important to me. But anyway, I remember after 10 days, I went over and I said, Joe, I said, where am I going? He said, well, look at the board, look and see where you're going. He kind of chewed me a little bit. I said, okay, sport. So I just said sport. Sport would happen to be something I called everybody about that time. Just like you might say sport fans now, sport was the thing then, for me. That irritated me. I think he wanted to put me in my place a little bit, too, because he felt like probably I was a little bit too cocky anyway for my own good. And they didn't have an idea in the world of keeping me unless I had a knockdown fences that first year, which I wasn't about to do.
Ted Williams' greatest disappointment, his greatest failure, was the 1946 World Series, which the Red Sox lost to the Cardinals in 7 games. It turned out to be the only series he ever played in, and which, as the years went by, only compounded the pain. The public didn't know it, but he injured his elbow in an exhibition game before that series, and it was undoubtedly a factor, but he didn't use it as an excuse for his poor performance, and didn't with me. But for the 7 games, he hit only 200 and no home runs, and when it was over in St. Louis, he was devastated.
God, I never will forget after the 7th game of the World Series, damn it, here we lost it. And I couldn't believe that I'd been so lousy. I was kind of shell-shocked to think we'd lost, but I was so disappointed in myself. And I remember I went down to train that night. God, I've been reading these stories. I'm going to be traded for Newhouse. I'm going to be traded for DiMaggio. God, I was so completely upset. And I remember I went into my berth in my little compartment. And, gee, I got in and I just broke down and started crying. Crying, oh, geez, I was crying like that. And, geez, I look out the window and it's a whole bunch of people watching me. You know. Geez, I shut the shade down, you know. And I guess that was around 6:30, 7 o'clock. And I just stayed in there and brewed. And, geez, I was just, and everybody was just sick, you know. And it wouldn't hit me this hard now today if I was in a series, you know, for the last 10 years of my career. But right then, you know, it just hit me so hard. And so I didn't even get out of my compartment until about 10:30, 10 o'clock, 10:30, and I was hungry too. I finally went to the club car and I had dinner. And they could see that I was feeling terrible.
Were you
And
alone?
Cronin was trying to console me, and just about that time, Cronin was going to kill at Finnegan, you know. Oh, he was really mad at Finnegan. They got in a hell of an argument. And Cronin was going to cut his throat. He was so
What
goddamn.
happened?
Oh, I don't know what happened. I wasn't there, except they had a hell of an argument about something. Finnegan had been writing a lot of shit about that time about everybody.
The things that stayed with Ted Williams that were disappointments that ate at him for the rest of his life were certainly the World Series of '46 when he did so poorly and the team lost, and then the missed chances for the repeat of a chance to get in the World Series in '48 and '49. But there was one more that affected the rest of his life in baseball.
The four biggest disappointing things in my career rank like this: losing the World Series, our second finishes in '48 and '49, but particularly the one in New York, because we had a lead going into that series.
That's
My
49.
second. The third is losing to Cleveland. And we not only lost the pennant that year in '49, but I lost out to Kell by 0.2%. He got 2 hits against Lemon, and but the fact we lost was a big disappointment. 48 was the third biggest disappointment. And I must say, losing the MVP in '47 was also a big disappointment too, because I felt that but not as great. Those other three are my three big disappointments. Those are my three big disappointments. And I'll tell you my fourth biggest disappointment. And maybe it is the biggest disappointment of my career. It's the biggest disappointment of my career. You know what it is? And I broke my elbow. Because I knew after that I was never going to be the hitter I was before. I didn't know it at that time, but I knew it in '52. Because in '50, I struggled to see get started. 51, I hit .317, and I knew then that I was always going to have problems, you know. 52, I was in the service. 53, I come back and hit pretty well. In 54, I had a pretty good year, I think. I don't remember. But I knew then that I was never going to be the hitter I was before.
The one consistent, persistent rap on Ted Williams by those that like to criticize him was that he wasn't that great an outfielder. But Ted, who understood the complaint, also understood that it might not have been totally warranted. He saw it differently.
I was a good, strong, average outfielder. I'll tell you where I was a good outfielder, regardless of what they say. In my heart, I played hitters better than a lot of guys. I never threw to the wrong base. Even though I'd boot a ball, very seldom did I drop a fly ball. But I made up for a hell of a lot of speed for playing good position. And that instinctive baseball something that I had, for example, if I could see a pitcher throw at a guy, and I could pretty much say, that son of a bitch can't pull this guy. Or if he's a little late, I'd immediately shift the step. Or if he was early, I'd say, pull this guy. Or the count was 2-2 and I could see him choking up or kind of shortening up or bending over where he's going to punch the ball. Those things I did. And a lot of guys never did. I remember a very, very distinct situation. I was playing in Yankee Stadium one time and Barrow was hitting. Now Barrow hit like this. Barrow was a hell of a hitter. Good, solid hitter. Son of a bitch, get the bat on the ball, and he might hit a home run, or he might squib one. But we were playing in Yankee Stadium one day, and I forget who was pitching. It was a pretty tough pitcher because I start shading Barrow towards left field. Got one strike, and I shade him. Christ, he got two strikes. Now I'm really shading him. And he hits a pop fly into left field, and I made a good play, but I got the ball right on the line. And I remember at the time, it was a long ball, fairly well hit but late. And I remember at the time he's running hard when I got the ball, and I could still see him running because he thought it was going to be a base hit. So I was the first man up in the inning that inning, and he said to me, "How the hell," he says, "can you play me over there?" See? Well, I must have been playing right. I got the ball. See? Well, I got sick after that. It was in July, August probably. And I got on home, and I got one of them viruses in September, and I got laid on my ass, and I'm up there in the hotel room. We had a guy, now this must have been in the early 50s. This was in the early 50s. Because we had a young kid called Stevens. He came up to our ball club. And he could run like a deer. If I could have had that boy's speed, I know my lifetime would have been at least 20 points higher. At least! Because he could run like hell. Never took advantage of it. He's not as good as he should have been. But he was the guy that was going to take my place when I left, but of course he didn't. So, I was up in the room and I was sick, and I'm laying there, you know, a couple men on. Bear is up the plate. And anyway, he hits a little ball into left field. Another one right down the line. Well, the way Kurt described the catch that Stevens made, it was the greatest catch that's ever been seen. I mean, he come out of nowhere and got on the line and got the ball, made a great play. Saved the inning, and Christ, the cheers, and you know, you could hear it. I knew it had to be a hell of a play. But all I could keep thinking about, I bet that wouldn't have been any tougher play for me than him, because I'd have been playing him over this. Now, I could have been wrong. I don't know what the count was, but I remember the incident in New York and then come back and hear this and know that because probably the way I might have been playing, I probably could have got the same ball. See? Not everything equal, I would, because he was a lot faster.
And you had this instinctive way of playing.
Well, I think it wasn't as much instinct as just observation and putting it applying it. You know. Same way with a pitcher. I mean, you can see what a pitcher's going to do sometimes just by observation. Yeah, you can pretty tell what he's going to do. Just like I told you there. Guessing is no good for the guy that hasn't got something to go on. I'm using a little logic and a little bit of deduction in addition to saying, boom, this is the best way to go. This is just proper thinking. Not just guessing, proper thinking. It comes under the category of proper thinking.
The thing about Ted Williams, the great hitter, was that he never stopped looking for answers, better answers, to hitting. And frequently, whenever he had the chance and their paths crossed, he would seek out those answers from other great hitters of all time, including in Minneapolis, Rogers Hornsby.
Hell, I'd stay out every day. Hornsby'd like to stay out too. I don't know how old Hornsby was. He must have been 45, 47, maybe 50. He was around 50. And hell, I'd have a hitting contest with Hornsby, you know. Have a hitting contest. Base hits, home runs, you know. And that old bastard just keep hitting line drive. Didn't have quite the sting to him that mine did now, because I was, you know, a little younger and just.
This is after practice you do this.
Yeah.
Or after a game.
Yeah. No, after practice and everything. And we'd hit. He loved to do it, and I thought Hornsby was great. Very undiplomatic. He'd say something that would.
Give me an example.
Well, if he had a dislike about anything or anybody that, I mean, he wouldn't mind just saying, oh, he's horse shit, you know? I don't like that. He'd say, I don't like that. Or he'd, I can't remember anything specific.
Did he sting you a little bit?
No, he never did. In fact, we always seemed to get along pretty good. And I never did see him too much after that. But he never did criticize me in print, you know? Like Ty Cobb would say, you ought to hit 450 if you go to left field. I'm trying to go to left field, but I'm having trouble going to left field. Or Al Simmons, when I hurt my elbow and I was having a hard time coming back, I hit 317 in 1951, but I was hitting terrible early part of the year because I just couldn't get started. He said it's the end of Williams, you know. Never be a great hitter anymore. Well, I damn near wasn't a great hitter.
But Hornsby never did that.
No, Hornsby never criticized. He'd lay a blast once in a while to the modern players, you know, like I don't know. I remember the time in Minneapolis there, and this is in '38. I think DiMaggio was holding out, and he wanted $25,000, Joe DiMaggio. And he said, "Who the fuck do you think he is? He's only had 2 good years or something, you know." But it was that little, you know, he'd give a blast like that once in a while, you know. And or he might blast anybody, but you know, if something hit him just right, he'd say it. Or if the owner of the ball club kind of give him a little question about it, he might say, "What the hell do you know about it?" You know, and I mean it.
Who was that?
Well, I don't know that he did this. I just say this is the type of guy he was.
Yeah.
See? And he always got in ringers by what he said. You know, always got in ringers. And he said, he'd say this, nobody's business what I do with my money, he said. Nobody's business, you know. He said, if I want to gamble, I can gamble. But the commissioner was on his ass for gambling, see?
Among other things, Ted Williams is known as the last of the 400 hitters because in 1941, he batted .406, and no one has even come close to that since, which means that in his lifetime, he could say that no one had done it except Ted Williams. He had a lot to say about it, both when he played and after the fact, because indeed it was a great achievement.
Then 41, of course, the only thing I can remember is, the things I can remember, of course, are DiMaggio's 56 streak and my 400. But me, personally, the 400 thing got bigger as the season went on, you know, because a lot of guys that hit 400 for 2 months, but then here's 3 and now here's 4. And, geez, I'm hitting 412, 413, you know? Gosh, I'm hitting 400 plus, good.
Well, let me ask you something before you. I want to really dissect this season if we can. But had you done anything in the off season differently? Had you?
Not a thing, except that.
Were you stronger? Were you in better shape? I know you hurt your ankle, didn't you? At one point?
Not a thing. The thing of it is that I was getting more matured all the time, and I knew the pitching better all the time, and and then I always say the early part of the year, if I had one advantage that year, it was this, that I didn't play too much the early part of the season. Now, what did that mean? The early part of the season, it was cold in Boston. You'd have a lot of bad, adverse hitting winds. Nobody hits as good in cold weather as they do warm weather, especially in that up in Fenway, because the elements are against you.
Mm-hmm.
So I pinched hit a lot, man. I was getting hits all the time. So in about 2 weeks I hadn't played except pinch hitting once in a while. And about that time the weather started getting warmer and I got in the lineup, and in the meantime I was getting so damn much batting practice, the most batting practice I ever got in my life. I'll tell you who we got for Chapman. We got Joe Dobson, and Joe Dobson wasn't a pitcher in our club, and so he wasn't pitching regular, and Joe Dobson wanted to pitch too. And he had a hell of a good curveball. And he was tough for me because he had a real good overhand.
He was 46, wasn't he?
Yes, you're damn right. And he had a hell of a good overhand fastball and a good overhand curve. And so he wasn't playing regular, and I wasn't playing because of my ankle. And we'd have contests out there about 3 times a week, and he'd throw the shit out of the ball. And you know, it's always harder to get yourself geared up in practice than it is during a game. You know, in a game, you just naturally get geared up. But in practice, it's hard to gear yourself up. Well, we'd have a contest, and boy, he'd bear down on me like a son of a bitch. And I was bearing
in the mornings, in the afternoon?
In the mornings or afternoon, depending.
Yeah. But every day?
Yeah,
every day.
Just every day that his arm would hold out. My blisters would hold out. I want to tell you, it helped him be a better pitcher. He always said that. And it sure as hell helped me be a better hitter, because I had a chance to do things, and for 2.5 weeks there, that, Jesus, the best batting practice I ever had. Well, God, I was sharp as hell, you know. Of course, I'm really getting batting practice against hard. We'd play a regular game, you know. And he was tough just pretty naturally. He had a good, tough delivery.
What do you mean a regular game? What do you mean?
We'd play games where how many hits you get this inning and what inning, high score tonight.
Ted Williams came back from Korea and had great seasons despite his advancing years. He was pushing 40, in fact, when in 1957 he batted .388, just a few hits shy of hitting .400 again, won the batting championship, and won it again the following year. But then in 1959, he suffered through the only truly bad season of his professional life. For the only time, he batted less than .300 and was miserable the whole year. He'd been injured before that season started, but no one really knew about it. He knew, and he knew he wasn't up to what he'd been. And when the season was over, the owner of the team, Tom Yawkey, invited him into his office and suggested he retire.
I remember at the end of the year, Mr. Yawkey called me. And we start talking and talking. He used to drink in those years. Matter of fact, every time I ever went up to talk to him, I said, always ended up getting drunk and shit. I'd leave him. He wouldn't even know, you know, he'd have an awful heavy drink at that time. So he asked me, he said, what do you think you ought to do next year? And I come right back to him and I said, what do you think I ought to do? And he said, Ted, he said, I think you ought to quit. Like that.
Was it in his office or at home?
No, up in his apartment up at the Ritz-Carlton. He said, I think you ought to quit. He said, you've had a great career. And he said, you got hurt this year. And he said, I don't want to see you get hurt. He said, hell, he said, why don't you just, you know, he said, hell, just wrap it up. Well, I kind of burnt my ass a little bit, you know, because I knew I'd been hurt all year. I hit .355, .360, .388, .327, and then I hit .250. Perfect example of how a guy is hurt. I mean, I was in the hospital. I had a pinched nerve. I couldn't turn to the pitcher. I was absolutely miserable the whole year. And boy, that's the most miserable year I spent. I think. I couldn't swing. Didn't want to swing. And there carried me. So I said, well, I tell you, I said, I'm going to wait till next spring to decide. Because I said, I still think I can hit. And I said, I'm going to wait till next spring. I said, if I feel I can't do it by spring, I said, hell, I'll let you know.
There was a side to Ted Williams that too often people missed, and that side was that he was a generous, caring, giving human being, and frequently gave to causes beyond just in money, but in time and effort. Probably his favorite, and the one that was most identified with Ted, was the Jimmy Fund out of Boston for kids with cancer.
How'd you get connected with the Jimmy Fund?
Well, the Jimmy Fund was something that actually I was connected with the Jimmy Fund before the Red Sox were connected with it. It was something that I was, you know, somebody asked me to do, and I did it. We went to a damn old field. I forget where the hell it was, outside of Boston someplace. An old ballpark, and they had an old wrestling ring up there, and there was 4 wrestlers, and Frankie Fontaine was there that night. Who's been a great champion for the Jimmy Fund, and you know, had done a hell of a lot for charity around the Boston area. And he was there that night, first time I ever met him. And this is in 1947. And And then about that time, I think the Braves left for Boston 48 or 9, didn't they?
After the 48 season.
Yeah, 49. So in 49, the Boston Red Sox really picked it up. But they started to get in the act in 48, but really picked it up in 49. And the Braves left. Mr. Yawkey took the ball in because he realized that this was a pretty important thing, a real important thing. And that the ball club, the association between baseball and the Jimmy Fund was really established, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure he liked that association. He also liked the fact that the Jimmy Fund, all about it. So this is what happened. Of course, the announcing and the players and the benefit games and all the rest of it.
Ted Williams won his last batting championship in 1958, a bargain, as he put it, when his average was only .328. But what made that interesting was that the batting championship race came down to the very last game, and the guy that he was neck and neck with was a teammate, Pete Runnels.
Runnels comes into the picture, and
How was the team that year?
he was the kind of hitter that have a great year and then a mediocre year, and then a hell of a year and then a mediocre. He could slap that ball around, had great bat control, and he was a pretty good little hitter. So he come to Boston. He hits ahead of me, second. And this year, sitting like hell, hits like hell. Had a hell of a year. And I'm riding his ass, you know, all year long. And you know, you always hear the theory that if you want something bad enough, you'll get it, you know? Well, I want to tell you. I went into that last 2 weeks because we weren't in the pennant. I went into the last 2 weeks I said, I hope he wins the thing. But I'm not going to give it to him. I'm going to try to hit a little bit. I always tried to hit. So, he could go into the last 3 days of the season. And finally go into the last day of the season, you know? He's hitting .325 and I'm hitting .325. And I'm still going into the thing in my heart, telling you the truth, where I said, well, if he wins, I hope he wins it, you know? I mean, it won't make a damn bit of difference to me, really. I mean, I was at that stage in my career and everything else. I certainly am glad I won it now, but at that time, I really didn't care that much. Because, you know, Runnels had never won a batting championship, and he was a hell of a little hitter. He's a damn good hitter, Runnels. Should have been a better hitter, but he was a damn good hitter.
Nellie Fox type, wasn't he?
He's a little more. He had more power than Nellie Fox, but on that order, Nellie Fox is I think Nellie Fox is a pretty good little ball player, boy. When you talk about Nellie Fox, boy, I talk about him in reverence a little bit. I think he was a son of a bitch of a little ball player. That son of a bitch is 5'7" and a little pint of piss, and you get him up in the ninth inning where you got to squeak a run out, he'll blunk one or bloop one and might even hit one, you know? That son of a bitch. I think he's a hell of a ball player. He was a hell. I'll take him. I'll take little Nellie Fox. I think he was a hell of a ball player. And this is a guy we can kind of exploit on a little bit, you know, because I feel so strongly about Nellie Fox. I really do. So, I mean, you can take Bobby Richardson, you can take Phil Rizzuto. You take the little guys, you know. And these are real giants among little guys, I think. So, I mean, they're real giants, even though a little guy. So, here we are at .325 the last day, and we're playing in Washington Sunday, and I always hit well in Washington. I could always see the ball good.
Well, after this time, you had a pretty good year. I mean, did you feel good all year long? It was 60 points lower than you hit the year before.
It was kind of a little let down from the year before, and I think this is probably something that added to my feeling. You know, what the heck, you know? Yeah. And God, I never will forget the first time he got up. He had a line drive to right field, or to left field. I think he hit it, and I had a line drive to right field, base hit. So we're still nip and tuck. I probably went a little bit ahead of him because I was up fewer times, probably. So, geez, the next time up he hits one against the fence, right field. I get up there, and I think Ramos was pitching. I hit a line drive against the right field fence. So the next time I got up, Reynolds hits the ball to left center. Pretty damn good. And Severs made a hell of a play, keeping it from going into stands in the left center field bleachers in Washington. And God, I got up there, and he threw me a little changeup, and I saw it, and I hit it into left field, right in the seats. Home run. Well, that completely broke Reynolds' back right there, you know? And I end the season up beating. And I told Pete after the thing, I said, Pete, I said, I wish you'd have won it more than me. I said, I didn't give you anything. I said, I was trying all the way, but I said I was pulling for you to win. And that's honestly the way I felt.
Ted Williams' last game and his very last time at bat have been talked about and written about for years since. It was indeed a memorable game and a memorable time at bat, and Ted could recall every detail.
The thing I remember is the first time I got up, of course, this left-hander's got pretty good stuff, but he's this day here, he can't get the ball over. He walked the first guy or the second guy, and then he walked me, and then he got in trouble with the next hitter and pulled him out. And it was a day that all he had to do was get the ball over, because it was one of those days that, you know, at Fenway it was dark and dreary and the wind blowing in, and, you know, it was a dreary day that, you know, that's the kind of day just get the ball over and make him hit. But he was getting in trouble walking. And so they got him out of there and brought Fisher in.
Well, second time up you batted against Fisher.
Yeah, and I hit a ball pretty good to right center. It was blue-black.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was hit good enough a lot of days to go out. It didn't go out. And then I hit another one the next time up far in the right field. It was an out, too, you know. The one I hit better than the other, and I thought, geez, if that don't go out, I hit that one real good, and pretty damn good, and it didn't go. And so, I just about given up that I was, I wasn't going to get any home run.
Yeah, one of the players said that's what you said when you came back in. He said, geez, if that one didn't go out, none's going out today. You remember saying that?
Yeah, I think so. I remember the first pitch to me was a ball, and he just threw a hard, tried to throw a fastball, and he got the pitch, boom, right in there again, a ball too. And then, he looked like he was going to try to fire the ball by me, I knew damn well he was going to just try to pump the ball in there, and I had a ball I should have hit a mile, and I missed the son of a bitch. Now, I don't miss, completely miss. And I missed that ball, and I don't know yet how I missed it. And I thought, holy Christ. How the hell he missed that ball? And then he couldn't wait to throw the next one, same way, I think he thought he threw it by me, see? Maybe he did throw it by me, I don't know. But I don't know why I didn't hit that ball. And the next one was right in there, and I was a little quicker. Chances are he did throw the first one by me a little bit, because the next time I tried to be a little quicker, and I hit that one. And I hit a little bit better than I hit either one of those other balls. Even though it hit the others good, pretty damn good. This one here had that little extra on it, and sure enough, I just thought that wind just kept going and got in there. And but that had to be one of my, I was really thrilled about hitting that ball, because the last time up, and the crowd, I never saw a percentage of people react as boisterous or as, I don't know, I haven't even got the words to say, but they really put it on that day, And so I remember...
It wasn't a real big crowd, but it was big enough to make a lot of...
I think it was 11,000.
Yeah.
And so I came around, and they just stood and raised hell, they cheered like hell. And then I got in the dugout, and most of the time, or a lot of times, I hit a home run, I just go right down to the dungeon, get a drink of water. And this time here, I did the same thing. I went down the dugout, and a lot of the players were pleading for me to come on up. A lot of them said, Christ, give me your hat. And I wouldn't even listen to it. And if I'm not mistaken, I think even Higgins come down to it. And, like when Mays hit his 500, well...
You weren't tempted at all?
No, not a bit. So they just kept clapping and clapping and clapping, and the umpires are kind of looking towards the dugout, kind of a half-ass appealing, Is that in his story?
Yeah.
Because they did. Everybody stopped. And I just wouldn't do it. And they're just standing, they're just, so.
But it had to make you feel great, huh?
Well,
Inside?
I felt great because not only the fans, because I told you my feeling for the fans had changed about 5 years before to a point where I felt like, that the Boston fans were really with me. And
Well, feeling that way and knowing you felt that way, why didn't you tip your hat?
Well, it was just something I just couldn't do because I don't know, maybe those 5 years didn't offset 15, see? 14. I just couldn't do it. So, and I think if it happened today, I wouldn't do it. Just couldn't do it,